I remember reporting to a colonel who was probably in his late 30s. He was behind this immense desk that seemed as wide as the room, with shiny windows going up the back. I stood at attention and saluted and tried not to shake too much. He had me take a seat, and we exchanged a couple of pleasantries in a very formal sort of a way before the exchange that I will never forget. He stopped mid-sentence, leaned back in his chair, looked down his nose at me and said, "You realize, cadet, that you will never fly an attack aircraft." I recognized this comment for what it was meant to be, which was small and mean, because at the time, in 1993, attack aircraft weren't open to women to fly. But I also understood in my extremely nascent military career that there are times when the only thing you can say is, "Yes, sir." So I did. Then I went back to the Duke ROTC detachment and requested a transfer out of the National Guard and into active duty. Later that spring, Congress lifted the combat exclusion clause for aviation. Suddenly, everything in the inventory was open to women and men to fly, and I reported to Fort Rucker later that year. The moment with the colonel, that was a moment where a lot of people would stop, right? Or accept the powers that be. A big part of what begins the grit-forming process is deciding that you are going to be the person in charge of your own story, not someone else. You are going to be the person that decides what your narrative will be. You can't choose the raw material, but you can decide how you're going to use it. Many people don't do that. How do you take that first step? It's about focusing on your end goal and what your purpose is. When you're focused on that core purpose, that you are going to succeed, that you are going to contribute in this meaningful way, that allows you to not concentrate on the obstacles as much. It's a choice of where you put your focus. Why is focusing on your own story so important? The way we understand information really is in the form of a story. Thinking back to make sense of our own stories, to understand the places where we grew, to understand our strengths, to understand where we overcame obstacles, becomes part of how we can approach future challenges or even current ones. It's thinking back and saying, "Hey, look at how I got through this really hard time. I either developed that strength or I realized there was a way around this hurdle." Doing that can help you find ways to negotiate the challenges that you're facing today, and that's critical work. You aren't just making sense of the raw material that you're given. You're looking at how you turned the raw material of your life into your story. Because you get to choose. You get to say either, "I was a victim of this circumstance," or "I was able to overcome this. I was able to push through." When you do that work and you decide what that arc of that story of your life is going to be, then you can borrow from the strengths of that. You can understand your values and how to go forward in connection with those values in a way that strengthens you for what you might be facing today or will be facing in the future. You know your own story very well. How do you help people figure out what their story is so that they know what to commit to? There are a number of tactical exercises that I suggest. One of them is to start with what is sometimes called a journey line or a lifeline. Look at your major life experiences, really own and understand the raw material of them, and get that down on paper. Then study what you've written, aiming to understand how that relates to and informs your core values and your core purpose. Another exercise that I love drills down into your core purpose. This is pretty deep internal work. It's not back-of-the-napkin analysis. It requires time and space for you to think about, and to think about again and again. This exercise was developed by Toyota and is called the 5 Whys. Ask yourself why you're doing something. Not one time, but 5 times. A why for each answer you come up with. Drill down into that deep, deep why that's not specific to the job, that's not specific to the task, but that is truly connected to who you are as an individual. You've got to make that strong connection that is uniquely yours before you can apply it to whatever the task is, whatever the company is, whatever the company's missions and values and goals are. For me, it's service and serving others. Growing up, we made food for people who didn't have enough. We visited retirement homes. The concept of contribution and giving back became a very big part of who I am. Connecting to that purpose.